kick off, and I want to warmly welcome everyone to this webinar inside the Knox City Council intranet. I'm Chloe Durbin, Managing Director of WebVine, and today I'm joined by Deb Moutsias and Fiona Crozier from Knox City Council. So welcome to both of you. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you, Chloe.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So in this webinar, we're going to take you on the journey of creating the Knox City Council intranet. And we really hope that from this webinar, you'll gain some insights into a really well-executed intranet platform and see best practice for planning, delivery, and change management. So I want to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land and pay my respects to elders, both past, present, and emerging. For those of you who don't know WebVine, WebVine is a digital transformation consultancy based in Sydney. We help to energise and transform organisations and their teams by using the incredible suite of tools from the Microsoft platform. We're also the creators of Ingeo, and Ingeo is our comprehensive intranet accelerator built on SharePoint, packed with functionality and really rapid to deploy. And it's also the platform in which Knox's fabulous intranet is on. So let's jump straight into things. I'd like to introduce our panelists with a bit more detail. So first of all, Deb, you were the project manager for Knox Intranet project. You've got a background in software development and have been a project manager in IT projects in local government for over 5 years. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes. And Fiona, you've been with Knox for 7 years, and you have a background in internal communications before transitioning to the now digital communications. And you're now the lead of the intranet post go live, and you've been working with staff to really support them in enabling them to manage content in this decentralized content model. So welcome.
Thanks, Chloe. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. And a bit about Knox. So Knox City Council is in Melbourne's eastern suburbs and at the foothills of the Dandenong Ranges, which we're seeing in your backgrounds there. It's home to over 160,000 people. And Knox itself employs 1,000 staff in multiple locations, and you have a hybrid ways of working. So a bit to set the context of who you are. So we've got lots to cover today, so let's jump into it. What was the main catalyst for your new intranet, and what were some of the main challenges that you were looking to address? We'd love to hear a bit about that.
Yeah, so we had an intranet redevelopment identified as part of our internal communication strategy. The research we did for this strategy showed that less than 45% of staff rated our then current intranet as fair. And close to 50% of staff could not find other staff contact details or information when they needed it. Being government, potentially like lots of other people who had joined the call, we've got lots of rules and processes that need to be followed, and that can't happen well if people are having trouble finding the information about processes and people they need to do their jobs. We've got a screenshot here of what our old intranet looked like. It was very busy and cluttered. We had a tiny search at the top right, and we found people had stopped using it because it was bringing up so many irrelevant results. So we were really clear from the beginning that this was not going to be a lift and shift of our old intranet because we knew it wasn't meeting the needs. We had to write content from scratch in a way that could surface policies and processes that were buried in our document management system. And we were also keen to find a solution that would have a strong staff directory and org chart.
And so you did conduct quite a lot of internal research to help you plan the intranet. So, you know, hats off to you. That's such a great way to start a project. And could you give us some of the highlights of what you found during that research?
Yeah, definitely. As you say, Chloe, it was really important to do that really thorough research at the beginning of the project. So to understand what that current state is and what that staff experiences were when they were trying to navigate our old intranet. It kind of really resulted in 4 key findings for us. So the first one was around information, where information was either out of date or it didn't exist. So it made it really hard for staff to trust the content that was on the intranet. The second one was around people. So the collaboration was impacted with staff not knowing who to go to or who to contact if they had a question about a service or a task that they were trying to do. Also with that, we also found as part of the people was the staff connections. So staff really wanted to be connected to each other and stay across what's happening at Knox. That was really important. And the fourth one was around the digital workplace. So there are a lot of pain points around the number of systems and applications that we have and the difficulty in accessing these. So especially for our field-facing staff and those working remotely. The other piece of research that we really did was to work with our service groups to understand what those top tasks that staff were coming to them for, what questions they had when they were contacting these service groups. So that helped to shape some of the content that was most frequently, that staff were most frequently looking for.
So we're going to have a bit of a treat here and dive into some of the top features already of the platform. So now that the platform's live, what do you consider to be the most valuable features and why?
Yeah, I'll start with this one. For me, those valuable features really go back to what we did learn in the research, and so how we addressed that. So the first one would be around our search. So staff really need to find information, news, people, or task that they want to complete and to make that really easy. So as part of that, we invested really heavily into developing the content about those common tasks that were really easy to search for. And we also developed a Google-style search box, which you can see on the homepage there. So it's front and center on the homepage for when staff come to the intranet. We also have a smaller search box in the top right corner on every single page on the intranet. So staff do land on a page they weren't expecting. The search is right there for them to access. In a content-heavy intranet, our robust search just means that staff don't have to spend time browsing the navigation menu. So it's making it really easy for them to access and find the information they need quickly. The second one for me would be around our people cards. So every intranet page has a contact card, so to clearly direct staff to when they do have questions. So that really goes back to those research findings. That's a really important part of our service delivery, that staff know who to contact if they have got questions or need further help on a task.
That's your card there, isn't it?
That's my card, yeah. Yeah, so that's an example of the people card. And the third one is the news. So you can see the news hub on the screen there. So it really helps that connection piece and staff to stay across what's happening at Knox. So we upload articles as they happen, as they are relevant, and then we use our internal communications channels to direct staff to those news articles. So an example is our weekly newsletter that goes out to staff, points people back to the intranet homepage to read those articles in full. What I really like about that is it's very interactive, so we can get staff to, they do like news articles and also can comment on them as they're reading them, which is really great to see. I'll hand over to Deb to talk about some of the...
Absolutely. I've got a few. I think having a SharePoint-based platform ticks a lot of boxes for us. It gives us MS authentication, so we've got easier access. It's responsive to different screen sizes, including mobile phones, and that helps resolve the access pain point that Fiona spoke to earlier. It's also really easy to edit, which is important for our decentralized model that has non-technical staff updating and maintaining pages. On the screen, we've got an image of our staff directory. That was a major part of our new intranet. It's one of our most visited pages. Clicking on a person brings up their MS contact card with even more details. You can click to do a Teams call or a Teams chat directly from the staff directory. And the underlying data there is refreshed nightly. We're surfacing that people data from the source, and it means if anything's wrong, it's getting seen and it's getting reported, and then we go back and fix it at the source. The other thing on the screen there is the page feedback. I think that's great. We are capturing the page someone is on when they send us that feedback. So it makes it easy for them to give us feedback from anywhere on the intranet, and also easy for us to understand where they were when they provided that feedback. And that's going to help us with our continual improvement. And then if we go to the next slide, I also wanted to show the bottom of our homepage, which I really love. We've configured the NGO news recognition and people web parts to meet our vision to have our intranet showcase our staff and encourage connection. So you can see we've got staff giving shout outs, we've got our Meter team member and Knox in Pictures articles, and they highlight achievements, going ons and getting to know each other's. And we've got our comings and goings and job listings at the bottom too.
There's a real focus on simplicity and yet connectivity with your people, and of course just being able to make sure that they can actually access what they need so simply.
Absolutely.
So let's step back now and talk a bit about the project and the process. You know, intranet projects can be overwhelming, nebulous types of things. So I'd love to hear from you about what some of the challenges were that you experienced during the project, and particularly any lessons learned.
Yeah, so this was a multi-year project. I think early on, one of the things we didn't understand is what was and wasn't possible on the SharePoint platform, given it's not a custom intranet. So particularly around the look and feel, we had to adjust some of our original mock-ups around how we had visioned some of that to look in line with what was achievable. The content writing itself was a massive undertaking, as I'm sure many people can imagine. My light's just gone off. We had expert content writers come in to work with the teams to write their content. And we needed to bring teams on a journey of what user-focused content that allows staff to self-service looks like. And looking at that as a real change piece was really important. And finally, getting the staff data integration up and running was technically challenging. So my learning from that and advice to anyone embarking on the same journey is to start that as early as possible, and making sure you've got both HR and IT equally invested in getting that solution to work, because they're both really key to that whole process. We were lucky to have that.
Yeah. They're great insights, and yeah, it's interesting around SharePoint. It's an incredibly powerful platform, but also the limitations. There is so many limitations around what it can do. So knowing the boundaries of those and how we can flex it as much as we can to make it work. So thanks for sharing your lessons learned. But the other part of it is that so many things went really well in the project. It was a very successful project, and we'd love to hear from that perspective. What did you do well? How did you set it up for success?
Yeah, I think for what went well, we had really strong leadership and advocacy throughout the project right from the start. So that was really key for us. At the start, we did develop the vision and goals, and we continually came back to those throughout the project to make sure that we were, achieving what we set out to do, and tying that back into our research and what we learnt there. We had really good staff engagement throughout the development of the project. So it's an intranet for staff. So it was really great to have that opportunity to get them involved, to help test it and shape it along the way. We did write from scratch, as Deb mentioned, that was a challenge as well, but something that was very rewarding, to have that fresh content that is really user-focused, task-focused, and does help staff to self-serve. So yeah, that's a really, really good one. We also did have a phased approach to go live. So we ran a pilot for about 180 staff from our enabling services. So it was quite a large volume for a pilot. And the benefits to doing that is that a lot of those staff from those enabling services also were content owners. So they had content on the intranet. So the pilot gave them an opportunity to really test the intranet content from a user perspective, but also as a service owner to be able to help feel confident from go live that they could help direct staff to information that they were looking for. And also some of the insights we got from that large volume, you saw our feedback button before, so that's on every page, that we were able to capture those common themes of feedback that were coming through. And with that, we could either address it through changes to the content, or where it wasn't a content change. We've discussed before about SharePoint, where the limitations are and where that change is from the old intranet. We could address some of that through our articles, through tips and tricks from Go Live. So we had those insights as to what that staff experience was using the intranet before Go Live. So yeah, so really, really positive.
I'd love to hear more about the pilot and And, you know, so there was that research phase, the planning, the development, and now you've got this fabulous intranet, but how did you tackle go live and the change management piece and more about the pilot? It'd be great to hear a bit more about what you did with that.
Yeah, so I think we took some of the learnings from the pilot into our launch plans. As part of the pilot, we met with some teams before they had access and gave them a little demo, and some teams just got the demo. So we found that the teams who had that presentation adapted better. So we took that into our planning for the go live. We hold a monthly all staff briefing. So we use that as an opportunity to do a live demo to all staff the week prior to launch. We also created a 3-minute launch video that sort of had the same messages and demo, and promoted that through our internal communications channels. We had some other promotions, such as posters up around the office. We do a screensaver. We've got that up on the screen now. A screensaver on all devices. So it was very in your face. Everyone knew. I don't think there was anyone who didn't know we weren't having a new intranet coming online. So that changed on the day of go live as well. And then from the launch day, the project team did floor walks around the main office. We wore some bright badges to let people know who we were, and we engaged staff and checked on how they were going. And that enabled us to promote the intranet. We really pushed the message around using the feedback if they had any questions, and also to watch the launch video. And it just also let us ask questions as they started to use it. Fiona, did you have any other
Yeah, I think
that?
yeah, definitely. I think in addition to that, yeah, we did share those, as mentioned before, we shared the tips and tricks to help manage that change from the old intranet to the new intranet. So in a great way to start using our news articles and encouraging staff to come to the homepage to see those as well. We did develop a learn to use intranet page, which you can see on screen. So that's a permanent page that we've got to help staff to navigate. So while we have existing staff who might be familiar with it now, we've always got new staff joining us. So it's a really good resource for our new staff to get started as well. For ongoing, the other thing we did was we did keep the old intranet open for a few weeks just to help manage any missed content, to make sure that we had captured everything we knew to on the new intranet. For ongoing engagement, in terms of how we're supporting staff to continually use it, the intranet is the homepage for staff when they open their browsers each day. So it is the front door to many of the applications and systems that staff use every day. So staff are starting their day with the intranet, and we do direct staff to the intranet through all our internal communications channels. So whether it's the news or an information page for staff to link to. We have started our transition to our decentralised content author model with our governance around that. So we're engaging content authors to continually have their role to direct staff to the intranet and the information that they're looking for. But more importantly as well is to help their role to help keep the content up to date and accurate. So the intranet relies that trusted source of information for staff to want to engage with and continue to use.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, it was such a thoroughly planned out support and change management process. I really acknowledge you for the thought and care that went into that, and I'm sure your staff felt that as well. I might mention as well, if you have any questions, we will have some time shortly to ask some questions. So please do pop them in the Q&A and we'll try and answer those. So I'd love to also see and hear about from you any noticeable business outcomes that have been achieved, or if there's any specific user feedback, or if there's any way, be interesting to hear the way that you tested that. So yeah, what business outcomes have been achieved, or how have you gathered user feedback?
Yeah, so the probably biggest objective measure we did is some baseline testing that we did very early on in the project. We gave a number of staff a list of forms and processes to find on the old intranet and asked them to time how long it took. We suggested 5 minutes as the max before they abandoned a search, and there were quite a few abandoned searches. And then we redid those tests during the pilot period and compared the results. So I have that up on screen now. You can see we found an amazing 75% improvement in the time spent.
Mm.
You can also see it was quite variable depending on who was looking at it for how long it took. So it just showed that it really wasn't intuitive for everybody. Whereas in the new results, it's pretty similar. There's not much variability around how long it was taking people. So these results give us enormous confidence that we are going to meet our vision for the new intranet to be the place that is going to help staff find the information and the people that they need to do their jobs. We have had overwhelming positive response to the new intranet. We've got some stats from the first few months as well. The vast majority of our staff have accessed the site. We've had over 4,500 searches, over 1,000 views to our news articles. And the piece that I'm really excited about is the 103 pieces of feedback shared, because we're really looking for that engagement, and we're really pleased to see we're getting that.
I think it's brave of you to seek feedback, but also really important if you're deeply committed to, you know, improving and the ongoing improvement of the site.
Yep. Fiona, did you have some that you wanted to share?
Yeah,
too?
I had to, for me, staff photo. So we run a sort of project within the project to have all staff have a professional photo taken. So we see those on our staff directory and also on those contact cards that you saw before. My one, that's on every single page of the intranet. So really helps in that hybrid way of working for staff to have that face to a name when they're reaching out to contact someone. So I think that's a really good one. Also our shout outs. So on our homepage, we do have that shout out feature for staff to recognise their colleagues for the work they're doing. So this is something that staff have really embraced, which has been great to see. So we regularly see staff adding a shout out on our homepage for their colleagues.
That's fantastic. You know, on reflection, it's been quite a radical transformation of simplification and, you know, creating a new intranet which has made it easier to find information. You know, you've placed search as such an important feature of the intranet, knowing that your users really need to find important policies and rules and procedures. So, but I also love that you've put people front and centre, making sure that connecting with council's people is top of the focus as well. And of course, getting all of that feedback from them. So, you know, I really want to congratulate you on the project. It's and the outcome has been fantastic. It's been a very thorough project. It was really well planned, really well executed, really well tested. And now, because of you have that new content ownership model and the focus on continuous improvement with the page feedback, I'm sure it's going to be really well maintained as well, which is, of course, a
Definitely the idea.
Yeah, the idea, yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, a huge congratulations, Deb and Fiona, to you and the team. And thank you so much for all the words that you've been sharing here. And what we'd love to do now is put it out to some questions. We've got a little bit of time. I know we've got a hard stop at 11, but it'd be great to hear if there's some questions. So here's one. How did you choose the content authors, and how have you been engaging with them? Because it can be a bit of a tricky piece to do. So I'd love to hear from you about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So we had content owners because we developed our content from scratch. So we engaged the content owners as our subject matter experts. So they've been engaged quite early on to help write that new content. And then from there, they identified content authors. So to be the ones who are jumping into SharePoint to make those changes and edits. In some instances, that's one and the same. A content owner might be a content author. In some instances, they are a very clear, distinct role. So we engaged them quite early. Before we went live, we held an information session to help them explain what the role is, how the governance of the intranet works, and what everyone's role, what we're contributing to. And then from go live, recently we started to roll out the training. So the training is a really important mix of that SharePoint editing and then also the way that we have been writing the intranet to make sure it stays user focused and task focused. So We also will be developing a community of practice for that ongoing support to keep them engaged in kind of new what those changes might be on the intranet, and keep them really active and seek their input on that. So
Great. I've got lots of questions coming in, so that's excellent. Did you have any team members who felt uncomfortable about the shout out option? And if so, how did you manage that? And it's a really interesting question, because we've had other clients who are a bit nervous about that and talk about the need to perhaps moderate that type of a capability. But love to hear what your approach was.
Yeah, I can take that one. So that was definitely something that we discussed. Do we want to moderate the shout outs? How will we manage that? And the decision was that we trust our staff to be positive. We've let that feature really organically grow, and we do get automatic notifications to comms team as they come through, so they can be checked as soon as they come through. But we've been live for quite a few months now, and everyone is embracing that shout out feature. We haven't had anything inappropriate whatsoever, and it's really been lovely to see originally it started with a lot of people shouting out people in their teams or their areas, and it's slowly grown, and we're seeing people reach across directorates and departments, and really embracing that as a whole organisation.
So it's gathering a bit of momentum.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
That's fantastic. We have a question here about the menu structure, the information architecture, because that was a bit of a change from your previous intranet. So are you able to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, Fiona, did you want me to take that one?
Yeah, you happy to take that one, Deb?
Yeah. So our old intranet was really based on departments and teams. So it was really, I need to buy something, so I'm going to find the procurement page and work out there, and then I have to switch to the finance page to how to do invoices. And so it was really hierarchical, and I don't know, anyone who knows council knows we often change and restructure quite often, so it just wasn't working. So the new intranet is really based around the task and what you want to do. And to do that, we did a card sorting exercise early in the piece with our content owners, and we did a lot of tree testing on our proposed architecture as well. So we opened that up to all staff. We had over 100 staff participate in that tree sorting exercise to really nail whether we had got the right categories. But we're finding we are promoting the search more than the architecture. They kind of go hand in hand to support each other.
And how I've got a follow-on question about search actually. Have you felt that employers have moved towards that search approach? Has that been something that's easy for them to adopt? Can they find the information easily?
Yeah, for what we're discovering, people are. So people have commented that they are able to search the information and get the results that they're looking for. And that's where we always then encourage the feedback button as well. So if people are not getting that search, we do want to hear from them. So we can adjust that through keywords. But the overall feedback is that people have been able to find what they're looking for through the search.
Yeah, okay, great. And definitely, I've got a question here, probably our last one. What helped you in determining what was user-focused content?
What was that? Sorry, Chloe?
What helped you in determining what was user-focused content?
Yes, again, that goes back to our research, I think. So really understanding, what those tasks were that staff are going to teams for. So when we did those workshops at the start of the project, that's what it was at. What are the questions that people are asking of them? So that really helped us understand when we, pulled all that information together, what those top tasks were. So we could really make sure that that's the common content that we surface on the intranet. So, and the way we've been writing it is to make sure that it is, it's an action for staff to take. So, we're providing steps for people to do, or processes for people to complete. So it's kind of a bit of a combination of that, that research that we did, and then the way we've been writing from scratch.
Yes, and shout out to Step 2. I know they're involved in some of the research up front. So Yeah, that was great. So we've come to 11 o'clock. Oh my goodness. We've come to the end of the webinar. Thank you for being so generous with answering those questions. And thank you for all the questions. And thanks everyone for your participation. I hope this has been of value to you. It was such a great project. Congratulations again, Knox and Deb and Fiona. And thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks very much, Chloe.
So
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure.